Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our third workshop with Edward, and today is on building core confidence and self-esteem. So if you missed the other two workshops, the first one was on, I suppose, an introduction to conquering imposter syndrome. And then last week we spoke about the 5 types of imposter syndrome. So if anyone has missed them, you can catch up on the recordings, and I've sent them out to most people, but if I've missed you, do send me a wee email and I can get them across to you. But as I say, today it's more on core confidence, which I'm very excited about, Edward. I think that's something that we all struggle with. And I know that we're going to learn a few things, not just one thing today, because from the last 2 sessions, Edward, I've had such good feedback and some lovely emails just regarding your presentation. So it's wonderful to see that everybody is interested. Again, if you have any questions or any concerns, pop them across to me. I'm here in the background if you have any difficulties at all. But I'm going to pass you straight over to Edward, because Edward has a lot more fun things than I do to say.
Thanks, Shannon. And listen, thank you folks for again joining with us. I know a lot of people are off on holidays and people trying to get tied up to get a break next week. So listen, I do really appreciate you spending an hour with us to talk about this thing called imposter syndrome. Indeed, I got a lovely message during the week from a few folk in terms of some things around hypnosis and other things. I will respond to you. I have a busy week both in terms of training and development, and I do a lot of restorative justice work during this period in Northern Ireland, which you can imagine is quite busy around the 11th night. So I do a lot of work in communities with young people. So this week I've just been on the road, so it's not that I haven't had time to read your messages. I just like to take a wee bit of time to carefully consider how I respond and give you a bit of time in terms of what I send back to you. So apologies if you have sent me something. I have read it. I just have been out on the road and I want to just spend a little bit of time responding to you all personally rather than just sort of doing a generic email or something out to you. So thank you for that. So where are we going to start this week? Okay. Want to start looking at this concept of core confidence. Okay. Importantly, what it is, but how do we develop it? Okay. And one of the things I say to people, listen, before we move into considering confidence and what it is, and importantly, how can we use confidence to help us in our fight back against imposter syndrome? One of the things I always say to people is, listen, think about some of the tools that are going to be of benefit to you. Journaling has become very popular over recent times, and I suppose for me, I'm kind of grappling with journaling in the modern world. So I sometimes call it a diary. I get in the habit about 15 years ago of recording what had happened to me during the day, some of my thoughts and my feelings and what was going on in my mind or things that I'd learned that day. So I suppose the modern day we call it journaling. I call it having a good diary of what took place that day. I have 2 diaries. I have my work diary and then I have a big A4 diary. And I usually spend a little bit of time in the evening, about 5 to 10 minutes when I'm finishing up in the evening. And I just record things that have been important to me, stuff that I've learned, things that I've maybe haven't done quite correctly that I want to improve. And all types of information. Again, this will be very specific to you. So one of the things I've always said, whether male or female, I know women tend to be able to journal and diary much better than men. I don't want to get into the reasons why, but we do. So I would encourage, if you want to give this a go, one of the things I say to people is to stick at it. Make time to use a diary and use a journal. One of our things to talk about building confidence is you need to have a planner. Okay, and why you need to have a planner is how we build confidence is through goals, it's through achievement, it's through doing things well, or importantly for me, setting out ambitious targets that you maybe want to see come into your life. You want to bring them into reality. And one of those things requires planning. So some of the nice modern day journals, there's loads of them out there, have both a diary concept, so you can record your thoughts and your feelings and what's going on throughout the day. And there's also a little planner in that, a little calendar, where you can keep a track on the things you want to achieve. I have a great business partner, again, suffered really, really badly with imposter syndrome. 3 of the different types out of the 5. And in terms of the planner, where he keeps that is on his fridge. So each day he gets up, he can see what he's doing and how that's growing into the things that he wants to achieve or what he wants to bring into his life. So make the planner somewhere where you can see it. Don't tuck it away out of the road. Okay, you want to have it in your conscious brain. You want to be able to see this. Most of us, I come up with that word, if you see it, then you start to believe it. And I know some of us like to keep things private. Of course, that's maybe your journal or your diary. But your planner should be something that is out. You can see how you're working towards the things you want to achieve and what actions you're doing in order to make that happen. That's not your daily planner, by the way. This isn't like your work schedule or I've got to get the kids to gymnastics or I've got to get down to the library to leave a book back. That's your daily planner, okay, for actions that you need to do to work. What I'm talking about here is a planner that helps you achieve success, goals, ambitions, things that you want to do in life. So that should be somewhere that's visual, where everybody who's in the house can see that. So but I always say to people, it's like if you ever go to a school and they're fundraising and they have this little fundraising thermometer, usually in the window, what happens is people start to get towards the target, more people start to give, more people start to weigh in. And the reason for that is quite simple. It is once people start to see success, once people start to see things building, then people get into that mindset of achievement. People can start to see it. So have that planner somewhere where you can see it. The other important thing for me is photographs, okay? I don't know what your ambitions in life are, and all lovely people here today, I'm sure you have all very different and diverse ambitions of things that you want to do, of things that you want to succeed in, which will ultimately help you build your confidence. So sometimes I always say to people, do 2 things. Take a photograph of where you're at now and where you want to be, okay? Only 2 photographs, where you're at now and where you want to be. Some of us might have the ambition of losing weight. That's a really easy one because you can take a visual of yourself now, and with the incredible power of technology, you can potentially take a photograph of yourself of what you would look like in 8, 10, 12 weeks, 6 months, whatever it is. So get into this habit of photographing the things that you want to do in life, okay? They're more likely to come into your periphery and you're more likely to achieve them if you can see visuals of where it is you want to go. And again, this plays on the fact of we've all come through school, and I know when we come through school and we weren't really taught how all of us learn to achieve. And some of us learn through speaking to other people. Some of us learn through doing things. Some of us learn through visualization. So photographs is a wonderful way of actually gearing the brain towards success when you can see the thing or the thing that you want to work towards, the goal that you want to work towards as well. The other thing that helps me greatly with confidence, because like everybody on here today, my confidence, like everybody else's, takes a little bit of a dent from time to time, okay? And one of the things is important to try and find in your life is a critical friend. Now, that doesn't have to be your best friend. It could be a colleague. It could be a mentor in life, but somebody who's always going to be honest with you, okay? Confidence for me comes through honesty. Confidence, when we talk about pure confidence or core confidence, it has to be built on honesty, okay? It has to be built on trust, and it's honesty and trust in yourself, not in other people. And sometimes a critical friend is very, very good at calling you out when you're being either dishonest or not holding up your end of the bargain, okay? Because ultimately when you fail, then that's whenever your confidence lowers. So somebody who can be, I don't even call them friends, because sometimes they're far from friendly, or you feel that they're not friendly. But what they're there to do is just to be critical of you in a constructive way when you really need it. Okay. So finding somebody who can help you with that. Also, a couple of other things, folks. And again, these are things that I always say to people before we start looking at confidence. These are methods and tools that are going to help you on this journey of building confidence and tackling or challenging imposter syndrome. And the last couple of things are, I suppose, unique to me, but may not be unique to us all. Sometimes you need this appraisal process. Okay. We always say about, we always talk about this idea of one being your own critical friend, if you can do that, but also about being able to analyze and appraise yourself, but not in a way which you're always putting yourself down and being over critical or oversensitive to the things that you've done, but importantly doing it in a way which takes into stock maybe what's going on in your life, maybe how hard your job is at the moment, maybe how much time you're having to dedicate to family life, and that takes away from the things that you want to do. But you need to have some way of mapping just exactly where you're at in terms of achieving your goals, your successes, and ultimately the things that are going to help you over time build confidence. I guess most of us all work in a world or a field somewhere where we have an appraisal process. But how many of us then appraise our own lives in terms of where we're going? What are we doing? How are we building confidence? Are we succeeding in the areas that we want to succeed? So use some of that methodology that you maybe use in your workplace. If people do project management, use some of the tools that we use to appraise projects for yourself. If you're in auditing or you're in accountancy, there'll be ways in which little techniques that you use to appraise how efficient and effective those budgets are being utilized. So what I say to people is come up with your own appraisal process. You don't have to go out and find and do something really different to what's already there, but some of you may be already using little techniques to understand how something is successful or achieving. And all I ask you to do is to tweak those things, that you can turn the looking glass around and use them to view the things that you're wanting to do in your life. Okay. And some of us also like a strategic vision. It's this idea, this grand concept of where exactly it is you're wanting to take your life. Where do you want to go in life? What do you want to achieve in life? What does success look like? What are your goals? What are your ambitions? All of those things all help build confidence. And when we're achieving and we're working towards those things, then confidence starts to rise within ourselves. Our confidence starts to build and it starts to grow. So some of us, I challenge people today to go, do you have a strategic vision? Most of us, I'm sure, have working businesses. Most of us, I'm sure, work our own companies as well. I don't know all of your backgrounds, but I would be fairly certain that each one of us, the organizations that we come from today, all have a strategic vision. And with that strategic vision comes an operational plan, or indeed a pathway. The how am I going to get to where I want to get to? So before I even talk about confidence, I always say to people, what tools have you got to help measure your level of confidence? And when we talk about measuring your level of confidence, we look at the things that we are working towards, that we're achieving, that we're building, that we're growing towards. I say to people, listen, how do we measure confidence? We're going to talk a little bit about that today. Confidence is very difficult to measure, okay? And generally people, when they go to measure confidence, it's like taking hands to measure Mount Everest, okay? How high is Mount Everest? That's about 3.4 million hands, Ed. Think about that, okay? We measure Mount Everest in meters, okay? We don't measure it in hands, but we could measure it in hands. And one of the things we talk about in life is there's not really one unified yardstick as to how we measure confidence. Usually we measure confidence, a lot of us, by how well we're doing in our job. Some of us measure confidence by how good our family life is. Some of us measure confidence by how much money we've got in the bank. think about that. Think about what it is you actually use to measure your confidence. Are you measuring your confidence in hands the same way as measuring Mount Everest? It makes no sense to use hands to measure Everest, but yet we measure our confidence based on things that make no sense. By how well our business is doing, by how well our family, our kids are maybe doing at school, by how many trophies are in the golf cabinet, by how much money's in the bank. All of those things are measurements that we use. But think about it, are they like the hands measuring Everest? So there's some little things I just want you to think about, and we'll talk about these as we go along. If you're not doing any of these, if you don't have any of these methods or tools in your life, think about it. Okay, I'm not telling you to put all these in place. A couple of these are probably ample to help you journey and map how you're growing and building in confidence and achieving and succeeding in the things that you want to do in life. And why I say to people, get it down, is if you can get it down and you can see it, if you see it, you can believe it. Okay, because if we hold it all in our brain, if we try and hold it all in our mind, the mind's a busy place. It's a destructive place. It's also a constructive place. But we maybe don't get the time to focus on the things that we need to focus on. So that's why it's important to use some of these tools in life, not just for now, but in life, which will ultimately help you build confidence and move towards the things that you want to succeed in. A lovely quote I love the picture. I have this actually in the shed here at home of this lady, because it's a great picture in the colors. But the slogan below it is, you're not born with confidence, you must create it. Okay, I want you to think about that. People talk about people who look confident, okay, or people who are overconfident. Confidence is something that you have to create. It just doesn't arrive. It doesn't come to you like an epiphany. It's not given to you by other people. Yes, you can have good, good people in life who you can look at, who you look up to, who might be confident people, and you learn some of the traits of what a confident person looks like. And you might even learn some of the actions of what confident people do. If you go to YouTube today, you'll see loads of videos on what makes successful people, what makes confident people. Okay, loads. YouTube's full of it. But each one of us will build confidence in our own unique way. You must create it. It's not something that you get from anywhere else. Okay, you have to create it. And I suppose for me, when we think about confidence, okay, have you ever jumped out of bed in a fantastic mood and had the entire day go your way? Or how about the opposite for some of us? How you feel is a direct result of your state of mind. Okay, people who work with me, I like talking about this concept of your state of mind, not mental health, not mental well-being, but your state of mind. How you feel is a direct result of your state of mind. So if you're perpetually stressed and anxious, you're going to be living in a depressed state. Everything in your life will feel like it's going awry. Okay. And during times like this, you may not feel like you can do anything right, and your confidence will take a direct hit. Okay. But if you consistently feel, we're going to look at some of these today, emotions such as gratitude and love and joy, and other ones we're going to talk about today as well, you're going to be living in a positive state of mind where most things don't bother you, like water off a duck's back, as I call it. And your confidence will rise as a direct relation to your state of mind. You'll move through your day with purpose, completing your tasks with enthusiasm, and building confidence as you go along. See, this is why these methods are important to have, okay? And this is all part of your learning and how you believe in yourself, a skill that fits, for me, hand in glove with how you fight back against imposter syndrome, okay? Imposter syndrome is based on, how do we challenge it? It's about how you believe in yourself. That's why confidence is so important. let me share some experiences with you about confidence. Okay. Confidence is something that comes and goes. People say to me, Ed, I want to be confident all the time. I want to be confident. And if I'm confident, then things like imposter syndrome, stress, anxiety, all of the stuff that is negative, it won't impact me. I say to people, listen, for some odd and peculiar reason, you believe that confidence is something that you should always have. Confidence is something that comes and goes. It's like happiness. It is fleeting. It's fleeting. There's nothing wrong with you or your confidence when things maybe just don't go your right. If you observe any living system in life, folks, and maybe some of you do in the careers that you have, if you observe any living system, you'll quickly notice that everything is constantly ebbing and flowing, expanding and contracting. Day turns to night. If you live in Northern Ireland, sunshine quickly turns to rain. As we know, winter turns to spring. Happiness turns to discontentment. Confidence turns to insecurity, and then back again. And the point is that no living system, just like ourselves here today, is static. Yet so many of us want to be always happy and confident. And what we fail to see is that there's a contrast in the emotions that create them. So we're going to talk a little bit about emotional energy. And ultimately, that's one of the big things that helps us with imposter syndrome. So the equation we're dealing with here is that confidence is not lost. Confidence is never lost. It is what happens is self-doubt that creeps in. And what I try to work with people, and what we're trying to do as part of today and in the next week, is how do we build true our core confidence that will not come and go? It might ebb and flow, but it'll always be there. Okay, it'll always be there. It'll always be in the background. It's there for the long haul. Okay, how can we spend more time being confident, Ed, than having self-doubt? And as we know, having learned about imposter syndrome craves, builds, metamorphosizes, grows off the back of self-doubt. When we're in that state of mind of self-doubt, imposter syndrome has the opportunity not just to come through the back door, but to walk through the front doors unopposed. So building this thing called core confidence is important, but be mindful that confidence ebbs and flows. But what we want to do is to spend more time of our life confident than with self-doubt. It's okay to have self-doubt. I have it. We all have it. But how do we spend more time being confident? The other thing I say to people is confidence is situational. Okay. Pretty much anyone in a position of power, whether you run a business, a manager, director, any place where there's a position of power, this is what I call situational confidence. It just happens naturally. But as a person, I wouldn't call that person confident, because confidence to me means to be able to feel comfortable in any situation. Okay, not just situations that suit you, not just because I said I do this thing where I show the picture of Boris. So I haven't did it today with you, but maybe not a great. Again, the problem with using politicians as co-design examples is that, unfortunately, their politics 24 hours is not is a short time or a long time in politics. But I use that thing of Boris standing at the dispatch box and then coming down the zip line, and then that picture of him in the Commonwealth knocking the little child over playing rugby, and I'm sure there's many, many more. So most of the confidence we experience is situational. You put somebody in a position where they have power, confidence will seem to ebb from power. But you take them out of that situation, their confidence and potentially self-doubt comes in. So understand that confidence is situational. You may not be confident in everything that you do in life, okay? You may have a certain amount of core confidence in you and your abilities, and that's what I say to people. Having confidence in you and knowing you and what you're good at is cross-situational. You can have that core confidence no matter where you go. Just sometimes in life, we may be asked to do things that may not play to our strengths, may not be the things that we are confident at. Okay. So confidence is situational. It's okay to be in a different situation and not have confidence. Importantly for me, confidence is a mindset, folks. It's simply that spiritual space where you feel free to focus on only things that you can control. Okay. Confidence is simply that spiritual space where you feel free to focus on only those things that you can control. I was taking a group in Rathcoole last night, and one of the life lessons I was saying, change the things you can change, let go of the rest. Okay. Confidence as a mindset comes whenever we're able to focus freely on the things that are within our God-given right, Mother Earth given right, whatever you believe in. You don't believe in anything, that's fine. But the things that are within our control. Like this, when I was a young rugby player, I believed that my accomplishments would lead to confidence. That if I did this or accomplished that, I'd walk around with confidence all the time. I remember looking at others thinking, we do this, think about it. You look at other people and you go, they must never doubt themselves, or they may never get nervous in presentations. Or for me, there was people who never got nervous in a game. They must not mess up. They have done things correctly maybe 1,000 times in practice. And for me, folks, I assume that if you were that good or had accomplished that much in life, you were past having to struggle with confidence. But it's not that way at all. See, what I've learned from playing with and against some of the best players in the world in rugby, being around high-level senior politicians for several years, is that your confidence will always be tested. It's your mindset and your approach when you're being tested, which is key. Think about that. If you're going to make any notes, your confidence will always be tested, but it's your mindset and your approach when you're being tested, which is key. There'll never be a point when you'll arrive in life at having figured it all out. It's one of the beautiful things about sports that I learned, is that you're always constantly going through ups and downs during a season, during a game. And every day you have opportunities to choose how to respond to all types of situations, good or bad. And I've learned that when you train your brain in a way that helps you cultivate a certain mindset, the challenges you face become fun, really fun. And your successful experiences become even richer. And the cool part for me is that your brain is a muscle. You've maybe heard this before, the brain's neuroplastic. We kind of leave that when we leave school because we close down a lot of the parts of the brain that we use when we were young and where we're looking to the world trying to work it all out. By the time we start getting bills and mortgages and all of the other things, we actually stop training this muscle, or we don't use it to the full extent. It's maybe like people, if you were going to the gym, it would be like going and doing a leg session every day, but not doing any cardio or upper body work. And that's the cool part about our brain, is it's a muscle that you can train like any other muscle in your body. And if you want to build confidence, you can do it with intention. You got to do it with repetition. And importantly, folks, people say to me, I want confidence. And I go, well, what relentless approach are you taking? Because if anybody's ever been to the gym and built muscle, you got to go every day. You've got to be consistent. You've got to be relentless in your approach, because trying to change this little thing above your shoulders isn't easy. So in the end, confidence isn't something that happens to us. It's something that you choose to invest in. The best things to understand is we are always in control, even when we feel we are out of control. I do a lot of work with people who have mental health issues and feel out of control. I can hold my hand up and say I was one of those people. But actually below the surface, below this muscle, we have to understand that we can take back control. It might be very difficult. Okay. Even in our lives, there might be other people imposing their will upon us, actually damaging our confidence, forcing us in the things that we've talked about, imposter syndrome. A lot of imposter syndrome sometimes isn't necessarily in our control because it's imposed upon us by other people or the will of other people. But we still have a choice. We still have a choice. And one of the wonderful ways I tell people in conquering imposter syndrome is to learn to manage your emotions, okay? And maybe management of emotions, folks, isn't the right word. But we live in this day and age where actually there's a lot of thought actually is that we can't necessarily control emotions. And that's right. Some of our emotions we do struggle to control. And that's why I like the word managing emotions. Sometimes we got to accept some of the emotions that come with imposter syndrome. And when we're feeling low in our confidence, the emotions, that challenge, that bit that puts you on your knees sometimes, we will experience. That's fine. Okay, we still have the choice. This is probably the most important diagram I ever give to people. I have this to keep it in my wallet. Because no matter how complicated the brain gets, we talk about confidence. Confidence, as we've realized, is built from a mindset. Okay, it's built from a mindset. Okay, emotions and this process that you see in front of you is essentially what I would call, for me, the dummy's guide to how the brain works. Okay, and I mean that in a nice way, because most of us aren't neuroscientists. We're not psychologists. We're not psychiatrists. We're not people who are working around the brain. But this, quite simply, in terms of helping you with the concept of imposter syndrome and how to build your confidence and ensure that your emotions don't override what you want to do. Come back to the planner, come back to the targets that are on your fridge, come back to your journal, come back to the way in which you approach the mindset of your critical friend who's trying to help you achieve these things in life. This is an important process that we all have to understand. And human beings have a unique and an incredible capacity to experience a wide range of emotions. Somewhere in the region, there's a lady called Tiffany Watt-Smith, has a great psychiatrist, has a YouTube channel, and she believes that we experience somewhere in the region of about 452 emotions. So we have a full wide range of emotions that we can experience each day. But if you let your emotions dictate your experience of life without pinpointing why you feel a particular way, your emotions then control you. And there's a lot of emotions come with imposter syndrome. And this is where imposter syndrome is able to get control of you, is through connecting into your emotions. And over time, this affects how you feel, how you act every single day. And for me, if you're fueled by a sense of well-being, then you'll put out happiness and calmness and confidence. But if you're bogged down by the negativity and the emotions that come with imposter syndrome, then those around you will feel that sense of unhappiness and indeed fear. When we look at how we connect in with our emotions, folks, some of you may have seen this little diagram before. Okay, some of you may not have seen this before. But what happens in terms of, people say to me, Ed, how do I manage my emotions? Okay, because if I can be emotionally well, if I can be emotionally mature, and I don't mean that via age, I mean experiencing emotions and understanding that emotions are just an energy source. Okay, they're what gives your thoughts compulsion. Sure, loads of us have had great thoughts. Some of us have maybe had thoughts today about me on this program, but why haven't those thoughts anywhere is because we maybe don't give them enough emotion. So emotions are little energy sources. Essentially, it's like driving a car without any petrol. Your car is your thoughts. Your emotions is your petrol. Your car goes nowhere without petrol or diesel. Similarly, your thoughts go nowhere in life without emotions. So how do we get on top of this process? Well, some of you may, if you've heard of CBT therapy and things like that, essentially some of the mind around how we plug into our emotions and how we manage, not control, but how do we manage our emotions in this world of imposter syndrome. Each time we have a thought in life, folks, most of us will then have an emotion that's attached to that thought. What if we had thoughts and no emotions? The thoughts are meaningless. They disappear. They're like little bits of light that just come in and disappear into the darkness. Thoughts then that we feel are important, or thoughts that we want to focus on, we bring them into we essentially look at them. Okay, we start to examine those thoughts, and through that examination, we start to apply emotions. That's a happy thought. That's a sad thought. That thought makes me worried. That thought makes me fearful. That thought might make me nervous. Okay, and what happens is, and go back to this little thing about the brain. The brain's always growing and developing, and that creates an internal memory. A little bit like me here behind, where I've got these filing cabinets or boxes. And some of you maybe work in a place where there's somebody who's very, very good in admin who labels things. You might have your red sticky labels, or yellow Magnolia files mean this, and accounts go into the blue ones, and accounts with the red labels are really important. That's exactly how our emotions link to our thoughts. Our thoughts with emotions, if they have a red label on them, what we're saying is that's really important. That's really important to us, and that creates an internal memory, folks. And over a period of time, that internal memory then comes with a certain behavior. Some of the things I always talk about, if you have a manager who shouts at you and it makes you feel nervous, then your behavior might be to put your head down. Okay. And even the physical reaction, you might even feel your body vibrating slightly. So what that does is it reinforces your ability. It reinforces this internal memory that whenever you have this, the manager comes in and these thoughts happen, then you get nervous. Then your behavior is to put your head down, and then you feel that little bit of a physical reaction. Some of you might want to get up. Some of you might want to grab them and put them out the window. I don't know, but we'll not go down that far in terms of physical reaction. But each time then you see that manager, whether it be in Sainsbury's while you're in the wine aisle on a Saturday night, or whether you're at Barry's or Curry's at the weekend with your kids, each time you see that manager, the thoughts, the emotions, and the behavior will all come automatically, part of your internal memory. Okay. So what we need to do in terms of what we call reclaiming our emotions is we need to start rewiring this internal memory. Okay. And how we rewire this internal memory is to change our behavior. So we think about the process of the manager comes in, enters the room, starts shouting, somebody gets nervous, and then you put your head down. What you might do this day is actually keep your head up and look them straight in the face. Okay. Even something as simple as no longer putting your head down automatically. You saying, you know what, I'm going to sit and I'm going to look at the manager as they're talking to me. What that does is that starts to retrain the internal memory, this bit that we've talked about. Okay. It starts to build confidence in your ability to manage your emotions. Because once you start to change your behavior, you start to change the internal memory. Okay, you start to rewire the memory, and in turn, each time you change your behavior, that starts to change your emotion. Okay, it might get to a stage where you no longer feel nervous about that manager coming in and shouting. Some of you may actually start to laugh. Some of you might start to smile. Some of you might just start to ignore them because you've got so used to the fact of what they do. So one of the ways actually that we can build confidence in managing our emotions and in managing the emotional process is to change our behavior to certain emotions. Okay, that's maybe not a great example. There's many different examples you could use. People flying, getting onto planes who are nervous, the way in which they go through the same process. How do they start to rewire this internal memory? How do they start to change their emotion to the experience of flying? Well, they've got to strap themselves in, and they're not allowed to get off the plane. They're not allowed to phone the day before and tell their friends that, listen, folks, I can't go because I'm not well. Or you decide that you're not flying, you're going to take another way. Again, what you're doing is you're changing your behavior. Okay. So think about that. When I call about reclaiming your emotions, one of the first things we can do is to look at our behavior towards the things where we're lack of confidence. Okay, it's a good example because if somebody shouts at you and you put your head down, again, that shows a number of things, but that starts to lower your confidence. Okay, it starts to probably self-doubt starts to come in there as well. And all of those things again then start to build this imposter syndrome. Because you maybe don't think that you're capable of doing the job because your manager's all shouting at you. And I know there's loads of different ways we could look at that, but that's the neuroscience. That's the bit that happens automatically. So one of the things I always say to people is, what are we doing to reclaim your emotions? Think of that process, okay? Very, very simple thing that we can do is rewire and start that journey of rewiring your internal memory, okay? Some of the other things we can do that helps us with our emotions is, again, I'll share this little diagram with you. I think it's really, really important. It's a nice 6 steps or guide to how we handle emotions. Because the best time to handle an emotion is when you first begin to feel and experience it fully. That way it won't keep popping up, again, like the filing cabinet, the things that are labeled red, won't keep popping up time and time again. Okay, this is where your journal comes in. Maybe some of those big emotions that you're experiencing, get them into your journal. Talk about them in your diary. Okay, because once you get them out there, it stops them popping up in the brain all the time. Okay, again, you're able to rewire stuff through visualization. Some of us rewire things by writing stuff down, because once we see it, then we start to retrain the brain. I don't want to feel that way. I don't want to respond to people emotionally in that way. Okay. And over time, you'll start to master your emotions. Okay. The first step for me in all of this is identify what you're really feeling. Okay. Because people go, it's all right, Ed, listen, I get this emotional thing. Okay. Probably we talk about being emotionally smart, emotional intelligence. All of those things are nice big buzzwords that fly around in society, but actually, do we really understand what we mean by being emotionally intelligent? Okay, this is a nice little way in which we can learn about actually the process to being emotionally intelligent. Because if we're emotionally intelligent, the emotions that we experience through imposter syndrome, we now know how to deal with them. We know now how to move them on. We know how to master them. They don't. Imposter syndrome, then you might experience it, but it doesn't hang around. You experience it as what we've talked about, as an emotion that comes in. So first step you want to do is to learn how to master your emotions, is to identify what your feelings are. I don't ask Martin and Claire and Gemma and others, if you come into work today, can you tell me how your emotions are today? We tend to ask people, how do you feel? So identify what you're really feeling. And to take that step forward in emotional mastery, ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Am I really feeling this? Or is it something else? Okay, good question to ask yourself. What am I feeling right now? In that experience, maybe the manager, okay, that comes into the room. Second thing we do is acknowledge and appreciate your emotions. Your emotions are there to support you. Okay, whether we like it or not, all of the emotions that we experience are there in some way to support you. And emotional mastery, folks, doesn't mean shutting down or denying your feelings or your emotions. Instead, learning how to master your emotions means appreciate them as part of yourself. Okay, appreciating your emotions, even the difficult ones. Appreciate them as part of yourself. You never want to make your emotions wrong. Okay, I want you to think about that. You never want to make your emotions wrong. The idea that anything you feel is wrong is a great way to destroy honest communication with yourself, destroys confidence, and importantly, it allows this self-doubt to kick in. I shouldn't be experiencing these emotions. I'm wrong. This is wrong. That's when the self-doubt comes in. Again, this is important because this is where imposter syndrome can kick in, because self-doubt starts to come in as well. Okay, so it's not wrong to experience your emotions. Okay. And how we do this, when I say to people, we start labeling emotions that are wrong, I say to people, get curious about why your emotions are sent you this message. What are they suggesting to you? Okay. Emotional mastery, folks, means approaching your feelings with a sense of curiosity. Okay, a sense of curiosity. Why? How many of us really today, when we experience an emotion, actually ask ourselves, why am I experiencing this emotion? Are we taking time to interpret your emotional patterns? Maybe the emotions coming to help you solve a challenge. Maybe it's preventing the same problem from reoccurring in the future. I can't give you all the answers, but what I want to give you that reassurance today is get curious about your emotions. Look at the patterns. Some of the patterns are really repetitive. Why I know so much about this area, folks, and imposter syndrome and everything else, was I was diagnosed with a thing called pure OCD at 30, 10 years ago. And it's why I had to get curious about understanding all this. As I said, I'm a 9/8, so I'm just a normal bloke off the street. We working class lad, always will be. But I learned all of this stuff because somebody said to me, Ed, you got to get curious about why you have got what you've got. Look, have you been ignoring your emotions? What have they been suggesting to you? And actually, when I started to look at my emotional patterns, it taught me more about myself than I'd ever known. I learned more about myself in 6 months than I probably learned in the previous 30 years. So get curious about the emotions that you do experience. Look at the lunacy sometimes in them, when they're just repetitive patterns that don't go nowhere because they're attached to thoughts, they're attached to that internal memory. So why do you feel exactly the same about something that's entirely different? Because we've always been led by the subconscious internal memory. It's telling you what you should think and what way you should be emotionally attached to those thoughts. And in this, we start to get confident. Okay, because when we start to actually look at emotions for what they are, we know that they're there to support us. We get curious, we start to learn about them, we start to challenge them a little bit. Okay, but we use them for what they are, they're energy sources. Then it helps us get confident. And the quickest and most powerful route to emotional mastery over feelings is to remember a time when you felt a similar emotion and handled it successfully. This is where we build confidence in our emotions. If we don't take time to articulate and appreciate and get curious about them, folks, the same way as we get curious about things in life, these things, if you really want to build confidence over your emotional process, think about times when you handle those emotions successfully. We get locked into thinking about how negatively or how poorly, again, the self-doubt, I'm not able, I can't cope. Hear that word all the time. I can't cope with these emotions. Of course we can cope with them. What we've got to do is think back to the time when we experienced that emotion on its own, raw, one emotion, and think of a time when we successfully dealt with it. Not now, because we're in a different environment, a different set of circumstances. But can we think of a time when we managed that emotion successfully? That's where we start to build confidence. And in that, then we can get certain of this. We can get certain you can handle this not only today, but in the future as well. To master your emotions, build confidence by rehearsing handling situations where the emotion might come up in the future. I come on to talk to you and I come on to talk to loads of people all the time. And people say, geez, it must be great. You never get nervous. I says, when did I ever tell you that? When did I ever tell you that? I must have spoken probably to the guts of 100,000 people in my life. Do I still get nervous? Damn right I do. Do I still get a wee bit of sweats? Of course I do. Do I still get a wee bit of jittery tummy? By God, of course I do. But I have confidence because I know how to handle the situation. I am a master of the emotions which come with nervous energy through anxiety. Anxiety can create nervousness or it can create excitement. So, I've learned that over my time, over the last 10 years of studying this. If I get nervous through adrenaline, I have the ability to reframe that as excitement. And I use that excitement as passion and energy. If I take that energy and I use it as nervousness, I would stand up and I would have a full hour of sitting here talking to you about imposter syndrome in a world where I would be filled with self-doubt. I choose to see that raw emotion in a way which has allowed me to build confidence. I use it as excitement, and I rehearse it, and I rehearse it, and I rehearse it. See, you hear and you feel yourself handling the situation. This is where I go back to photographs in your journal and all of these things, folks. I just don't say it because, I want to come and tell you here, listen, here's all the stuff I know. It's not about me telling you what I know. It's about what you're prepared to go and put into practice. It's about what you're going to do for yourself today. And this is when we talk about finally getting excited and taking action. Now that you've learned how to master your emotions, or I've taken you through a very brief overview of how it works, it's time to get excited about the fact that you can. If it's emotional baggage, if it's emotional energy that has allowed imposter syndrome to really grip in your life, then hopefully today is one of those ways which, again, it may not be for everybody. Imposter syndrome doesn't necessarily totally have to be emotional negativity, but for a lot of people it is. So today is about understanding how to master the emotions that come with imposter syndrome. If you nip the emotional energy, the source of its energy, if it takes it from your emotions, that's what keeps it alive and well. Then today, hopefully you've realized this is the way I need to nip it in the bud. Get excited and take action about it. Come off this call today, not just with taking everything that I've said, but go and get a bit more curious about how do I handle my emotions. How do you prove to yourself that you've handled it? This is the big thing. It's not about me telling you today, here's some wonderful information. You got to go authentically and prove to yourself in a fulfilling way that you can do it. And if you need some support, reach out to people. Okay. But if you really want to nip that emotional attachment that has grown, and that's its power source from imposter syndrome to you, then hopefully looking at how to master your emotions is something that's going to help you. I have two more slides I want to finish on today. I'll take up the last few minutes. I don't know where anybody's ever seen this before, but I really, really enjoy this slide. I enjoy talking about it. You could probably spend a full hour talking about this slide. But where it takes us to is, so we've got processes that we can use. Okay, we can use journals. We can understand the CBT technique. How do we change emotions? Or how do we master our emotions? Well, we can change our actions and our behavior. And over time, that rewires our internal memories. And then we can then start labeling more positive emotions or different emotions that we want to label when we're in that situation, when the manager's maybe gone off on one. I'm going to laugh from now on. I'm going to smile. I'm not going to put my head down. Good. Do that. We've looked at the 6 ways that you can help master your emotions, that process. One of the other ways then I talk about is replacing the emotions with emotions that give you energy. And this is where we're going to finish these 2 slides today. See, the big problem with imposter syndrome is that imposter syndrome thrives down the right-hand side. It is what do you want to call it? It's a mindset. It's an illness. It's a tough grind that gets on top of you. Whatever you want to label imposter syndrome as. It very much focuses and plays off everything that happens in a downward spiral in life. For most of us, we don't realize we're sitting here with a frequency today, somewhere between 62 and 74 megahertz. If I could plug Elaine in or Kathy on a wee machine, we'd all see that they were vibrating like a tuning fork. Okay, fact, it's not fiction. That's what we are. Okay, we give out energy, we take energy in. We get energy in our food, we give energy back out. Okay, the whole world is full of energy. We can choose, we talk about emotions, we can actually choose to plug in some of these emotions in our own right. If we're experiencing doubt and overwhelming, which again are key characteristics of imposter syndrome, maybe even a bit of pessimism, what are the more positive emotions that we're prepared to replace it with? And as we come back to that last point, that point 6 is so true. And this is where it all links in, folks. Get excited and take action. If you're excited about something, You start to be a little bit more hopeful, a bit more positive, maybe even enthusiastic. Now look at the energy that enthusiasm sends out. It's well up the positive scale, okay? That's the energy that you're pushing out in the world. It's the energy that you're pushing out to the people around you. It's the energy source that you're plugging into. Your emotions are energy. Go back to what I said to you today. They're the petrol in your car. They're what brings thoughts into life. Without emotion, nothing exists in your life. All your thoughts have been brought into form through your emotions. So what emotions do you want to plug into? Are you doing something that you're enthusiastic about in your day? So if you're having worry, if you're having doubt, if you're overwhelmed, the emotions that are very much attached to imposter syndrome, even jealousy, what are you replacing it with? See, we all have the opportunity in life to overpower our emotions. Again, we did this as a kid. We learned how to do this as a child. You fell over, scratched your knees, you cried, your mother gave you a lollipop, and you smiled. 5 seconds later, your emotions had changed from one to the other. We can plug in to things in life. These are our actions. These are the things we do. Okay, if we're experiencing worry and doubt and disappointment, what can we go to do that allows us to be passionate, to be enthusiastic, to put into place the emotions that take us out of imposter syndrome? We can't be in the world of imposter syndrome when we're passionate and enthusiastic and optimistic. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. If we live our lives with those and those emotions, not all the time. And again, I keep saying this, I'm not sitting here as a person going, hey, just live on the left-hand side, folks. Do 100 press-ups, have a cold shower in the morning, get up and do your emails at 5 o'clock. Life will be smashing. Of course it isn't. We will flip-flop between both of these emotional scales. Ones that take us up in the world, positive energy, doing things that make you confident, building and growing the world, building and growing the society around you, building your business, hitting the sales targets and growing. That takes us on an upward spiral. Then the things that happen in life that knock us back. But we can move quite eloquently between these two. And how do we do it? It's the only time when I say to people mentally, you use something stronger. You know, we always say about this thing in life, fight fire with fire. When it comes to the brain, of course, if we use something, if we focus on something, then it becomes important. So fighting fire with fire, fighting something that you don't want to experience, thoughts and emotions, with something that's more powerful, gives the whole thing focus. And for most people, they'll tell you that's not the right thing to do. And of course it's not, because the more attention you give something, the more emotional energy you give it. But one of the things I say to people is, what are the power emotions that you use? So when we're having a real bad day with imposter syndrome, we've now recognized it. You cannot ever come off this course and say, I don't recognize imposter syndrome. I don't know what it is. You've got the basics. You maybe got to go and learn a little bit more detail in it. But you will always now consciously be aware when you're doing actions and doing things and experiencing emotions, which is the mindset attached with imposter syndrome. You cannot get away from that. It's now in your conscious brain, and I love that it's there, because when you see it, you recognize it. The same way with emotions. If we're experiencing an emotion that's attached to imposter syndrome or anything negative in our life, what are we doing to plug in to more power emotions? What are we doing to overpower? What are we doing to fight fire with fire, but in a good way? Okay. And this is the very last slide, folks. I know we'll maybe be a couple of minutes over today, but this is the very last slide, okay? And when I say to people, think of your mind, your emotions, and your spirit as the ultimate garden in life, okay? Think about it. You spent all weekend in the garden and somebody walks past and throws a chippy wrapper over your fence. How does it make you feel when you've taken all of that time to cultivate a lovely garden, okay? And why we do this is, and when I talk about this in terms of emotional energy, we want to ensure that we have a harvest, that we've got seeds planted that instead of emotional seeds like fear and anger and self-doubt and the ones that we experience with imposter syndrome, what are the ones that we can reach to? And you may not be able to have all of these, and you've got to work out what emotions in your life are more powerful than the negative emotions that you experience. But here's some of them that I'll share with you today that work for me, okay? These are 10 emotional seeds in my garden that I try to use to bring fulfillment, abundance, and more importantly, an antidote to negative emotions, to imposter syndrome. And it does kick in because it's there, it's real, it's still part of my life. But now I know what it is. And as soon as it kicks in, I can utilize some of my power emotions in order to send it on its way. Okay. I don't want to be entertained by it today. The first one for me is gratitude. Listen, gratitude is the single greatest power to change your life. Spiritual leaders, philosophers, and people across the world credit a happy life to gratitude. It's an immensely powerful force. What are you grateful for? Because when you're grateful for something, fear disappears and abundance appears. Okay. So what are you grateful for in life? Okay. Think of those things. Photographs. So go back to your photographs, your visuals. What can you use that you are truly grateful for? And we have a lot to be grateful for in life. When you're grateful for something, fear, negativity, disappears, and abundance appears. What are you hungry about? Okay. What is it? I remember reading in a recent article by Tony Robbins. He said the most valuable secret to success in life is how do you live life in terms of your choices, but what do you live in life that you're hungry for? And in his article, he tells people that, whether you're an athlete, a musician, a business person, whatever it is, what above all are you hungry about? If you're going to create value, if you're going to create success in the world, if you're going to meet your goals, you've got to have determination to make things happen. So are you doing something in your life that you're hungry about, that you can focus on when the negative emotions kick in? What about passion? Passion is a force, folks, for me, it reawakens you. Passion blows the lid off your imagination, your capability, and your drive. Imposter syndrome does not and cannot live in a world of imagination, capability, and drive. Again, that's all on the left-hand side. It shakes your mind free from limiting beliefs. Again, imposter syndrome. It breaks your old patterns of thinking. Imposter syndrome. Passion is what gives you a sense of purpose. Excitement and passion can add juice, folks, to just about anything you do in life. And to paraphrase a politician, you may know his name, Benjamin Disraeli, said that a man and a woman only is truly great when they act from a position of passion. So passion is really important. Love and warmth, very important. When you experience love, almost all the negativity, all the negative emotion disappears. Love against fleeting. You're not supposed to feel it all the time, but what in your life do you love? Is it your pet? Is it your husband or wife? Is it your kids? Being in that relationship or being in somewhere in life where you can go to experience love and warmth. When you're struggling with imposter syndrome, when you're struggling with negative emotions, where can you go to get that quick hug, that quick nice voice, something that picks you up? Okay. Very important and it might even just be your pet. Okay. Some people might be animal people, not people, that's fine. Find that in something. Curiosity is important. You heard me talk about curiosity. And if you really want to grow in life, if you really want to learn, if you really want to achieve your goals and successes in life for you, you got to learn to be curious as a child. It's great when you watch kids. I coach rugby and you're trying to teach them how to throw a ball, and you look around and a child will say to you, Ed, how do I join the worm back together? It's in 3 bits. And you're like, yeah, it's that marvel of life. When we get into adult life, we get into the routine. We get away from curiosity. Then we get bored. And when we get bored, we end up coming down the right-hand side of the emotional scale. And when we get bored, negativity kicks in, and that's where self-doubt and imposter syndrome starts to thrive. Flexibility is key. I think it was Jeff Bezos said, we're stubborn on vision, we're flexible on detail. And there's a great thing in life. We talk about the ability to change to what's going on, to adapt without getting upset. is the guarantee of success. If you put any quote down, your level of happiness is in direct proportion to the amount of uncertainty you're willing to live with. Think about that. Okay, your level of happiness is in direct proportion to the amount of uncertainty you're willing to live with. Okay, are you flexible? Okay, can you move when things are going wrong? Can you move to a place where things may be different? Confidence, we've talked about. Cheerfulness is really important. Being cheerful means you live your life in a state of pleasure. Okay, again, maybe very difficult. It's one of the ones that I struggle with sometimes. Life buffs us around. We do get stressed. Cheerfulness is one of the more difficult ones, maybe. Vitality is important. That's your emotional energy, or it helps with your emotional state. Remember again when you were a kid, or you watched kids and they splashed around in muddy puddles and they looked full of life. Well, what's your ultimate source? What's your energy source in your psychology? Okay. What are you doing to bring vitality to your life? Might be something stupid, might be something rare, it might be something that's just you. But each one of us have to find something in life that brings us vitality. Some people walk at the sea and that fills them back full of energy again. That may not be for you. You got to find somewhere that go to a place where you can experience or plug in to something that revitalizes you. And the last one for me, folks, goes without saying, this sense of contribution. I've run charities, put charities together, done loads of stuff, and it's still this day, it amazes me that the most broken people in society, and I mean this both emotionally, financially, purpose in life, vision in life, the most broken people that you'll see in society are always the first people to volunteer. And bless them, because it's only when you realize that when you've learned the power of sincere and selfless contribution, you'll experience life's deepest joy, true fulfillment. If every day you can feel that you do something that adds to somebody, not your own life, but to others, then life takes on a new, deeper sense of meaning. There's no richer emotion, folks, in the sense that you as a person has done something, said something, or added to somebody's life, and they perhaps don't even know about it. It's the most powerful emotion that you'll ever experience on earth. If you have imposter syndrome, if your confidence is low, if you're feeling down, go and do something for somebody else. I'm not saying anything more about it. For those people who have done that and do that in their life will understand just exactly how powerful that emotion is. So if you're feeling low, you're feeling negative, get out and do something for somebody else. No gifts, no thank yous, no nothing. Just do it, and you'll feel an emotion that you'll not experience doing anything else. So folks, today is about how do we plug into that emotions. There's loads more we could talk about, but hopefully that's given you a good guide to one of the ways in which we help build confidence through our emotions. And if we can understand this emotional process, if we're ready, if we're prepared, and if we're going to grow in this process and take ownership of it for ourselves, then I have no doubt that it's one of the big armor in life, or a sword in which you can fight back against imposter syndrome, because you know it, you recognize it, and you do have a choice. You have the choice to decide to go this way or that way. So listen, thank you for today. Folks, thank you for staying with me. I know we've run a little bit over, but I just didn't want to drop that slide and come into it next week, because I think it's important to hear that message today. So thank you for that. And Shannon, back over to you. Thank you.
No, thank you, Edward. And I agree. I definitely think that that slide on the 10 power emotions needed to be said within that slideshow. It just works so well. Some great tips that we can use. And as you say, Edward, if we don't know what imposter syndrome symptoms feel like after this course, well then we're just not listening, because there's just so much knowledge there that you're sharing. It's amazing. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask Edward? I'll just stop the recording now if anyone wants to fire a question.